Hi, this is a video about watch bands. Watches are really popular these days and they come in all sorts of styles. This video will walk you through the various kinds of bands there are, giving you the pluses and minuses about each, and helping you make a better decision. Here we have 3 of the 4 kinds of bands there are. We have, starting from left to right, leather, metal, cloth, and the final one is rubber, which is not shown here because I don't happen to have a watch with a rubber band. So this is the leather band. Personally, I think the leather band looks best of all the watch bands there are, but there are a few issues with it. One thing, for example, is that it wears after time. If you look here, you'll see this indentation right here is caused by the buckle right here, which digs into the leather over time. Another disadvantage is the fact that, of course, it stains. And you can look at this band here and see that it's been stained by sweat. I mean, let's face it, you're going to sweat while you wear a watch. I don't know of any people that do not sweat. And so this will show up on the band. With some people, and thankfully I don't have to deal with that problem, with some people, the chemical reaction between their type of sweat and the watch band will make the watch band smell. So that'll cause you to replace it after a while. Another issue that occurs with a leather watch band is that the buckle will dig into the leather, as you can see right there, and it'll cause it to tear over time, and so that'll make you replace the band. You won't really have a choice, because once the hole where the buckle fits perfectly on your wrist is worn out or torn, you'll have to replace it. Now, the good thing about leather, of course, is that it seems to be best suited to be worn over our own skin, which is also leather. And with some watches, it can get to look really, really good. I mean, here we have a really beautiful example of a leather watch band. I love how the stitching is made in contrasting thread, and so you have the brown leather and you have the white stitching, which coupled together with the design of the watch make it look fantastic. Now I'd like to point out another issue that happens with leather watch bands. Here we have the whole gamut of leather bands that you might find on the market. I'm talking about a low-end leather band. This is what I would term a middle-level leather band. It's better molded and better suited to be worn. This is what I would call a high-end leather band, and I'll show you why in just a moment. Now, keep in mind, if you're watch connoisseurs, the price between these may not vary that much, but the quality of the leather band really, really does. And here's why. How do you distinguish a low-end leather band? This watch, for example, if you turn it upside down to show the behind, the back of the leather band, you'll see that it's finished in a very, very different quality here. So this is possibly plastic. If we're lucky, it might be some cheap leather, but most likely plastic. So this is not very good. Another thing you should watch out for is that it's not really molded. You see? It's pretty much straight. It lays out straight on the table here. Now, because this band is not molded properly to be worn over the wrist, it's not curved, you'll get empty spaces here. And you'll also get empty spaces right there as well. You see them? In other words, this band is just not going to fit properly on your hand. And it's just going to look silly. Now, over time, as your sweat and your body heat change it or make it softer, it'll mold better to your wrist, but still, this is not a good fit. So I would watch out for these kinds of bands. Now, this is what I would call a medium quality leather band. And you can see it does not lay straight on the paper, on the table. It actually comes right up. It's curved. It's meant to be worn around the wrist. People who built this leather band, who made it in such a way that it fits much better around your curved wrist. So let's put it on. Now I think you'll agree this is much better quality in terms of when you compare it to the other one. Do you see how it fits really nicely around the wrist? It's because the leather was molded or curved when it was made. Still, I would not call this a high quality band, and I'll show you why. This is where the buckle attaches to the band. I really have not worn this watch very much, and yet it's really worn. So right here, you can see some serious indentation, and you can see the hole starting to tear. So I'm not happy with the quality of the leather used here. Still, this band is good, just not as good as it could be. And why I say it's good is because you can see, if you look at it, it's thicker here at the top, and yet it's thinner and more pliable here toward the end. And that's important because you want it to be really pliable at this end so that it fits into the buckle. You don't want it to be thick over there and really hard to move. You want it to be really bendy. You see? So you can attach it and unattach it as easily as possible. Alright, so this is what I would call a high-end leather band. I really, really love this. I actually just got this watch recently, and I'm really, really happy about the quality of the band and, of course, the design of the watch, but that's another issue for another video. This band not only looks good, but it has all of the criteria that make it a high-end leather band in my eyes. So, is it molded to the wrist? Check. Is it thicker over here and thinner over there? Check. Is it really bendy over here to make it easy to attach? Very much so. Does it look great? Absolutely. So let me put it on my wrist and show you how it looks. So this is how it looks on my wrist. Can you see any empty spaces between the band and my wrist? I don't think so. I can tell you, and there's no way to show it to you on video, but I can tell you this band feels really, really nice on my wrist. And yeah, I've sweated in it. I've worn it to a wedding, and boy did I sweat in it. And by the next day it was back in its original shape, just great, dried up, beautiful. So yeah, look for a band like this if you want a really high quality leather band for your watch. So here we have 3 different types of metal bands for your watch. Of course, there are as many different types of or kinds of metal bands for your watch as there are metals. Of course, you can have them made out of precious metals. You can have them made out of steel, which these are made of. You can have them made out of titanium. Personally, I prefer stainless steel or titanium. If you want to go with gold or silver, just know that gold is quite pliable and scratchable, and so it'll scratch over time. And of course, a gold band on your watch might attract more attention than you want. A silver band would be nice, but of course silver is also fairly soft, and it might interact with your body chemistry a bit differently, oxidizing it, making it go dark, and then you'll have to keep cleaning it, which is not a lot of fun. Personally, I'd go with a steel watch band. It's easy to clean, it's easy to wear, lasts forever, almost forever. So if I were to pick my favorite out of these 3 kinds of metal watch bands, which one would it be? I would have to go with the mesh right here. The mesh is my favorite. So let me just put it on and show you. Here's how it looks on the wrist. It's really, really nice. It conforms to it perfectly, of course, just like it should. And I've had this watch for, my goodness, since 2003. And I've worn it quite a lot. And whenever the steel band got a bit dirty, I just went into the shower with it and brushed it and came out looking almost brand new. So I would highly encourage you to get a watch like this with a mesh band, stainless steel mesh band like this, because it lasts a long time and it's really practical. Having said that, let me show you what other types there are. Of course, you have the metal bands made out of links. Now the links may vary in size, they may vary in shape and finish and texture and whatnot. Just keep in mind that you will not get a tight, not necessarily, I wouldn't call it a tight fit, but a good fit to your wrist with a band like this. Simply because the room for adjustment is just not there. You have the option of just removing a link or adding a link, and so you can have your band be this much longer or this much shorter. It's like you only go down in units of measurement of what, half a centimeter to a centimeter to 1.5 centimeters, and so you can't get it to fit around your wrist really nicely. But these bands do make a fashion statement, a style statement. Let's put it like that. And so this is a women's watch band, a women's watch. And I personally think it looks really nice on my wife's wrist. So there you have it, even though it may not fit perfectly. This is a men's, of course, watch. And it's also with links. Now, I'll tell you what's good about having a metal link band on your watch. If it's an automatic movement, and this one is, let me put it on to show you even better. Now this kind of band, what it does is it travels up and down on your wrist, causing you to shake your wrist in order to get it into place. Well, if you have a watch with an automatic movement, that sort of shaking of your wrist actually recharges the watch. So the manufacturer of a watch with an automatic movement is really smart to put a metal band like this on it, because it's really easy for you, the user, the customer, to recharge the watch without even realizing it, even when you're sitting on your chair. Category, the cloth watch bands. I don't like them. They crease, they twist, they bend, they tend to get grimy over time. I personally really don't like them. But if you aren't going to wear your watch for extended periods of time and this doesn't bother you, then go for it. Certainly you can get them in all sorts of shapes and colors and sizes, and especially the colors and the stitching. Of course, they can go nuts with those things because it's cloth and you can make a ton of stuff out of cloth. Let me show you what happens when you try to put on a cloth watch band. This happens. You have to, it keeps falling off. It's because the end is just not hard enough in order for you to force it to go through the buckle. So you finally made it go through, in order for it to stay there while you're putting this on. And another issue is trying to get this through the loop here in order to make it stay. And it just, because it's cloth and the loop is also cloth, it doesn't work. Now I've seen newer bands where this is metal, and that's better. That's better because then you can get the cloth through the metal buckle and the metal loop, and it works. But again, I personally, I don't like it. I don't like the feel of wet cloth against my skin when you're sweating these things. Plus, it can tend to fray on the sides if it brushes against your clothes too much. So it's not what I would call a practical watch band. If you're into that sort of thing, go for it. But just know what you're getting into. All right, so the last category, again, rubber watch bands or silicone watch bands. I don't own one of those, but they are great for aquatic watches. Certainly one place where I can't really see one using any other kind of watch band. So pretend that this is a rubber watch band. When I was doing a lot of swimming in high school and in college, I used to have a watch with the rubber watch band. And what would happen is the chlorine in the pool would whiten all of the segments of the band. And so every day they'd end up having a thin film of white stuff on it. And I'd have to go through with a pencil, because it bothered me, a pencil like this, a mechanical pencil, and just kind of rub it out every day. And so it would settle in between all the crevices of the watch band. and that's a real pain in the keister. Yeah, so let me illustrate this in a simpler way. This is the grip of a mechanical pencil. This is what accumulates between the ridges of a rubber watch band. You get all the dust and little particles of stuff and little tiny threads from cloth and whatnot. It's just disgusting. Now, of course, watch bands these days are treated with some kind of slippery finish, but that wears out fairly quickly, and so you'll still end up with something like this. Now, if you're comfortable wearing this on your hand, then that's fine, but if you're not comfortable, then don't get a rubber watch band or a silicone watch band, because silicone is even worse with this stuff. If you don't believe me, just look at one of those silicone mitts for the kitchen. See how much crap it has on it, and think about whether you want to wear that on your hand. There are really only two mechanisms for closing the bands. Well, okay, if you count Velcro, I suppose that's another mechanism, but let's discount Velcro for now, shall we? So you have the buckle, right? Classic design, just like your belt. It works forever, and then of course it's usable almost forever unless it tears through the hole, in which case you have to get a new band. And then of course, when it comes to metal, you have the clasp. There are various different types of clasps. Each watch manufacturer chooses their own. This is one of them with a pin. You simply press, and the pin is released by these two buttons on the side. Here's another mechanism. This is really a clasp, you see? Press it in, and then you pull it out when you want to release it. Here's another mechanism. This one looks a bit more complicated, but it's actually just has multiple points of closure just to make sure that it stays closed. So these hooks here go over that bar and then this latch comes on top to make sure that it stays closed. So let me attach it. There. Which mechanism out of these clasps do I find to be the most long-lasting of all of them? Again, I'd have to go with this one, because there's so little to break here in this mechanism. You have simple metal hooks and that attach to a bar, and then a latch comes on top, keeps it closed. Very simple. While this one right here is more easy to open. It's much easier to open and close. Over time, what you'll find is that the top of the pin will wear down, and what will also wear down is this right here, that hole in there where the pin goes, and then you have to replace the watch band. But certainly that takes a lot of time to wear down. So while this one may not last as long as the other one, it's more practical because it's much easier to open and close. Now, when it comes to, of course, the classic mechanism, it's a classic mechanism and a story. I mean, it is what it is. It's been in use for hundreds of years and it works. It's been time tested. So there you go. Let's recap. We have leather. Sewn leather with leather sewn with contrasting thread can certainly make an interesting style statement. I love it. If it's done right, it looks great. Leather, of course, is natural, and so it is much easier for us to wear leather than anything else on our bodies because it is natural. Leather and cloth are the way to go if you want completely natural. But again, cloth has its downsides. It just doesn't mold as well. It doesn't stay in its shape as it should. It tends to stink when you sweat into it. It just doesn't feel great around your hand if it's wet. So in my personal opinion, out of leather and cloth, go with leather. Now when it comes to metal, of course, you have the link type or the mesh type band. My preference, mesh, for the reasons I've already stated. It just conforms much better to the wrist. It's easy to clean, it's very strong. It's much easier to adjust to your wrist than that, where you have to remove segments. This one, you just, there's a very simple way to move it up or down, to move the clasp itself up or down the band, so easy. So there you have it. I hope that I've made the various kinds of bands there are clearer to you, and you'll be able to make a more informed decision when you choose your next watch or watch band, whichever the case may be. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Till next time, see ya.